Hello and welcome to PMI's Uncommon Sense podcast, tools to improve your work forever. I'm Susanna Clark, Managing Partner with PMI, the performance improvement consulting and training firm. Our Uncommon Sense podcast is a 15-minute conversation with our expert consultants. They talk a lot of common sense, although much of it is not common practice. And that's what this podcast is all about. We want you to be inspired to improve your business through learning more about the tools which can help you succeed and grow. Today, I'm delighted to welcome Dennis Crommentuijn-Marsh back into the Uncommon Sense room. Dennis, could you introduce yourself, please?
Hi Sus, my name is Dennis Crommentuijn-Marsh and I'm a director consultant with PMI and also head of data analytics and insights.
And data analytics is definitely what we're going to need for our conversation today, which is on evolving to control charts. So first of all, can you tell me why you chose this?
So I work with many different clients in many different parts of the world, and there's an evolution that I notice in their understanding of their own performance. And the evolution starts often with, we have basic tables and we print them out, and we have these people that over the years have become masters in scanning through these tables and understanding where various bits are working or are not working. The next step then of that evolution is to say, okay, we're going to go from tables into graphs. And the most common graph that probably is used is the run chart, the bar chart, the pie chart, etc. So all these classic charts that you'll find in any Excel package and in any PowerPoint meme that's available out there in the wide world when you type in the word chart. But there comes a point within their understanding of the performance where they realize that there's something else going on that they can't quite put their finger on, but they realize that the act of them interfering, trying to manage that process, is actually making the process worse. So that's the point often where people realize that there's this thing called variation, and often that comes from the training that they have done with us. The concept of variation then, of course, goes to the concept of natural and unnatural variation, or common cause and special cause variation. And therefore, the question is, how do we now display this effectively? And therefore, how do you use this insight now to drive a different way of making decisions? So that's why I'm really passionate about this, because I want to help people to make better decisions and actually make people's lives easier.
Okay. So if I am in that position that you just described, what would you be saying to me about thinking about that evolution towards control chart?
So first of all, I would start with diagnosing what their current state is. Where are they today on this journey? Are they still using tables? Is it all manually inputted? In which way are they displaying it? How are those displays being created? And then I would also listen to the type of conversations they are having. A classic conversation, Suze, is that this month was better than last month, or this month was worse than last month. And they call it a trend, a positive trend or a negative trend. And if they've got as far as putting into some kind of business intelligence software, we'll get a green dot if it goes up and a red dot if it goes down, on the assumption that up is good and down is bad. And then I will start to challenge them a little bit around their own thinking and around the concepts of variation. And that becomes quite uncomfortable discussion very often, that initial discussion, because this is how they've been working for many, many decades. Even though the SPC chart will be 100 years young in 1924, Walter Schuhart did his first publication to this line manager in 1924. Hey boss, I think this is a good way of understanding variation. Is still not well understood by a majority of organizations that we initially engage with. So it's still quite a green field for us to embark in. And therefore, there's a natural resistance to going to something more complicated. There's also a fear that often a manager has that they don't quite understand anymore what goes on behind the scenes to create a control chart. So there are a lot of barriers that we have to overcome before a senior leader in a business is actually willing to accept this is a useful way of me understanding how my process performs using a control chart.
Okay. So in terms of situations that you found yourself in with clients, have you got any examples of where somebody's made that transition and not just about not only made the transition, but made the transition and learnt more about what they're doing as a result?
One example is just this week. I'm working with an amazing client. They are very mature in their understanding of their own data and converting into a software package called Power BI. And they're using the classic charts within that. From those classic charts at the moment, that's the best they have. And I don't mean that in a negative or derogatory way. That's the best they have, which is amazing. And they're trying to make sense and therefore gain insights. What I've been able to do this week is to take that data, because it's so easily accessible, and stuck into a control chart. I noticed on this control chart that there were some unusual events going on for periods of time. One of which was, of course, the COVID period, the lockdown period. And we could see this black and white within the control chart popping out as signals. There was also another event that happened earlier in the last decade. I say, hey, something unusual happened here. So although I didn't know what caused it, in this particular case, I could highlight it to them, say, hey, something happened between 2016 and 2017. They went, oh yes, that's right, we did something else. And because I was having this conversation live with the data manager, but also a member of their executive, we were having a wonderful situation where I was highlighting that something unusual was happening, and they were saying, yes, we now know why and what happened there. So together we were able to tell now a new story that was not apparent from just in this case, the classical run charts. Then we also did some comparisons between the before lockdown, the after lockdown, again using control charts, and we realized that things actually had gone back pretty much to normal. And again, a wonderful insight, because they were wondering, have we gone back to normal? And if so, what does that look like? And of course, what the control chart does above anything else is not just understand where the center of a process sits, but also the variation. And that concept, that knowledge of that notion of variation, which exists, of course, in every single output, in every single process, they were not very familiar with. So they absolutely loved the fact that 1 year was slightly higher or lower than another year was, for a majority of the data, not unusual. But during the COVID period, was extremely unusual. And I could give them some real hard numbers and therefore some very useful questions around why did they believe that number had changed so dramatically. And now we have a follow-up set of activities to do now a deeper dive into what we believe are the theories by which that was created. And now we're going to see if we can prove or disprove those theories. So the control chart was absolutely fundamental in reaching a far deeper understanding of their own process and business performance.
I don't know if you remember, Dennis, this is a few years ago now. It's not that long after I joined PMI. I had someone working for me and they had a control chart, and we'd been doing some things differently, recording the data, and we weren't seeing up points outside of the control limits. So we weren't seeing what we were calling the assignable cause in the right direction to say things are getting better. And I was very frustrated by this because I believed that the control chart, was not doing its job properly. And I came to you and I explained my dilemma, and started saying, it's got to be getting better. It's got to be getting better. We're doing all this stuff and we've got to be getting better. And you were great because you were really calm and you took me through a number of different tools. You put the data in different tools and you consistently proved to me that actually nothing was changing. Yes, we might be trying harder, but we weren't getting better results. And that meant we had to think really differently if what we wanted was a completely different result that was going to change, really make a change, and not just go up and down a bit. It was a hard lesson to learn. It was very emotionally painful because I was so convinced,
Yes, I remember, yes.
But it was a really good lesson for me.
Indeed. And it's interesting. Actually, I wrote a blog about this, the challenge between the head and the heart.
Mm.
The heart desires change. It desires that the actions that you have executed have led to an improvement. But the head sometimes has to have that conflict discussion, that uncomfortable discussion with the heart, the desires to say, I'm sorry, there's no change. The changes that you made did not lead to improvement. And the control chart, absolutely, Suze, is a fantastic tool to actually brutally, and I would always say agnostically, tell you yes or no. You'll be very pleased to hear you're not the only one that suffers from that conflict. It's a very natural conflict to have. And there was once a Greenbelt project with a client that went through to certification. And that certification I saw for the first time. I was there as an independent assessor, and I saw the project being delivered. I saw the control chart. And the control chart he had manipulated, and I'm using the word manipulated very carefully here, such that an improvement was shown on the control chart. And the bottom line of his project is to invest in excess of £500,000 worth in new equipment. And I smelled something. I've been studying control charts for a very long part of my professional life. And I thought, the change is not an improvement. So I said to him, okay, let's have a look at the raw data here. Let's have a look, therefore, at the decisions, the steps you made to do this recalculation that you believe shows an improvement. And when I started to look at it, of course, there was no signal. He had made a change, and because he had made a change, it actually had changed, therefore, the limits marginally. And based on that, he was going to recommend to have £500,000 worth of improvements.
In our evolution from things that we've been really comfortable with, and run charts in particular that show perhaps gradual increases, or they appear to do so, because every now and again you get an up point and you can just ignore the down point and so on. What we need for that data to be really useful, to really tell us in the world of improvement, are we making a change that is actually resulting in improvement? We need to evolve into the regular and disciplined use of control charts. That's
absolutely, Suze. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the ability to detect a signal which truly is a signal, not just it's slightly bigger or slightly smaller than we thought would be, therefore we investigate.
Yes. And for me, in this, I'm sure, the thing that's shining through from this is there's the technical side of the control chart. Yes, how you create one and what tool you use and so on and so forth. But actually, the learning about what it all really means is the key here, isn't it? That people, have not just got to learn how to enter the data, they've got to learn to interpret it. That's the key.
Absolutely. It's taking the data, doing the analytics, and then creating the insights. The so what. What is this true story here now? Absolutely.
And finally, any last kind of thoughts on this, tricks that you would say to encourage people in their evolution journey?
So top tip, Suze, to our listeners is take a data set that you know inside out, that you've been working with for quite a while, and you know how it's been built up, evolved, etc. Stick that into a control chart. And if you haven't got a control chart package, then contact us. We'll provide you an Excel file. Or there's also packages within Power BI that can do that. For example, Easy SPC is one of them that we would recommend. And see what the story is that it's telling you now. And it may well be the story is exactly what you thought it should tell because you know your data inside out. Also telling you something that you weren't quite aware of. So, and I think both therefore are great learning opportunities for you to become more comfortable with just the concept of control chart. And therefore evolve your understanding of how to now use it for other processes.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much, Dennis, for joining me today. It's been really interesting.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining us. You can find more episodes of our Uncommon Sense Tools to Improve Your Work Forever in our Knowledge Hub on our website. or, of course, your favourite podcast platform. And do subscribe so you never miss an episode. Don't forget to check out the show notes for this episode, where you'll find links to more content on this topic, which includes webinar recordings, toolbox guides, blogs, and infographics, and our training page. You can always drop us a line on team@pmi.co.uk and arrange a time to have a call to talk about how these tools can help you in your organisation. We'd really love to hear from you.